Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining me for episode 13 of TRG 30. It's just you and me today, and it's June 10th, a full 3 months since the WHO declared COVID-19 a global pandemic, which is what inspired TRG 30. We wanted to ensure that we were talking as a field about the most important things during this crisis. And then the death of George Floyd highlighted one of the most critical things we need to be talking about. I was only a year old in 1968. People a few years older than I tell me that the past 2 or 3 weeks resemble that time. I have been rocked by it, changed by it, and I've already made mistakes trying to act on it. People across the world have joined the Black Lives Matter movement here in America, calling for a revolution in the way that we treat each other, value each other, and show up on behalf of each other. I said this in my blog last week, but I'll say it again here. We have work to do at TRG Arts. I have personal work to do, and I welcome the challenge this time creates for bold action. I welcome the challenge and opportunity for revolution. Donna Walker-Kuhn said it beautifully last week when she said, arts is the only pure is the only pure vehicle we have to help people transcend their differences. We have a responsibility to talk to each other when we make mistakes or offend each other. We have a responsibility to stop and listen to each other, to help our communities heal and create positive actions. These are righteous actions. And like any righteous action, taking these actions will also result in our sector's resilience. One can and will feed the other. But this is not the only place where revolution is required right now. I have spoken to hundreds of executives in multiple countries in the past 3 months, and there is so much work to be done to enable our sector to be different and better than before these crises began. I see 7 areas, in fact: increasing diversity and combating racism, critical. But also we have missions that may not be good enough anymore, systemically weak working capital, governance, attitudes, and postures that hold nonprofits back, and artists viewed as creative cogs in organizational wheels rather than central to organizational thinking. It is time to act boldly across many fronts. Honestly, only our most virtuously strident leaders will get us here. Are you nodding? I want to know if you're nodding in your virtual space right now. We all believe in the power of arts and culture. We've got to take stock and gird our collective loins. We must act now. We must revolt against some things so that we can start new, extraordinary other things for our extraordinary sector. Now, I know that we're all feeling a bit or a lot provoked right now, tired and unsettled, downright angry. This time in our world is angering and unsettling. And I'm afraid today that I want to provoke your thinking a little bit more. I hope to motivate you. But if I leave you feeling agitated and wanting to challenge me, poke my eyeballs out, well, this time is worth that challenge. It's with this need for revolution that I've been thinking about Simon Sinek's work. Last year, he published a book. It's called The Infinite Game, and it builds on game theory. James Carse wrote about it in the mid-'80s. He was a longtime professor of religion at NYU, and he tied the concept of game theory to mindsets. He described the finite game as having known players, fixed rules, expected boundaries. A finite game is a game played to win, like checkers or tic-tac-toe or war. A finite game is played to win. An infinite game, on the other hand, has known and new and unknown players. Endless scenarios, multiple ways to skin it, fewer or no rules or boundaries at all. It's played for the purpose of playing, and there are many definitions in winning. Simon Sinek contends that organizations and people who play the short-term game, who play by the existing set of rules and frameworks, might survive in the short term, but they won't thrive in the long term. I've been thinking about and applying this idea and these concepts to our sector. And I think the rules of the short-term finite game include rules that we have about missions, assumptions about funding models, equity, artist work rules, about buildings as distribution channels, about audiences and demand that may result in fewer people paying more for scarcer experiences. Are these the ways and the rules that we're playing with now? Compare this to the infinite game, where players play for the long haul, joyously playing to play. In our sector, we play for wise and just causes that give and serve and provide, or we should be. The infinite game posture is different. It looks a little bit like the posture that Bob Berta from a couple 3 weeks ago in TRG 30 described when he described the collegiate athletic assumption that they were just going to have to live alongside this virus. Live alongside this virus. They trust that fans will be back, that universities are where innovation happens, that they have what they need to deal with the COVID crisis creatively, even through and in disruption. That mindset feels more infinite to me. Now, I'm not naive. I have worked in this sector since the late 80s. I understand the financial realities, the operational challenges, the systemic racism that we're surfacing now. We have a lot already on our plates. But boy, if we have ever had an incentive for a long game change, it is now. As I've tried to reconcile the two, the short-term realities and the long-term thinking, I've been listening for it, and I've begun to see evidence that some of you are pulling a both and. Yes, we must tend to the short term, like immediate customer needs, ensuring they're seen and heard and served. Same with our staff, our artists, our boards, especially in the middle of the second pandemic of racism we face. And we must tend to the financial realities and needs and live within new constraints, and they're real. But we can also adopt a broader long game mindset that could open us and our sector up to new ways, new energies, new meaning. Some of you are doing this now, and it's inspiring and exciting to me. TRG Arts is thinking hard right now about our sector's future and recovery. We're starting to think about our purpose in this way, imagining our long game way of being that helps our sector not just recover, which is a very complicated concept right now, but as importantly, be resilient. We're evaluating our needs for our change. And as we do that, I am seeing, as I said, organizations and leaders that are inspiring me with their long game, infinite mindset thinking. They are making new assumptions. They're starting to play, to think and act in new ways. Where are they focusing? Well, as I said, there are 7 ways that I can see today. And remember, I mentioned earlier that I want to know if you're nodding in your virtual room. And I want to give you an opportunity to respond to these ways of thinking with a poll at the end of this session that helps me see your take. So for now, grab a pen or a pencil, your computer or paper, write these things down as we go. Lean in with me, listen with me, so that when I'm through, show me either how hard you're nodding, how motivated you are, or how crazy or deaf you think I am. 2 notes before I get started. First, some of this will sound new and different coming from TRG Arts. Some of it will sound familiar. Underlying all of it is that we believe if we actually intend to change, all of this requires measurement, data analysis, evidence of change. And the second is that I've timed this session and made time for questions, and there are 7 new ways that I want to introduce here. I'm going to work hard to ensure that we have as much time as possible, but our team is going to be tracking your questions in chat as we go. And at the end, we're going to advance the anonymous questions first. I commit to personally answering, though, those of you who put your name next to a question. If we can't get back to you during this session, I will. I am listening. We want dialogue. Okay, so let's get started with new way number 1. Artists must actually be at the center of our recovery so that our new ways are as creative as they can possibly be. To start, artists across the arts and cultural spectrum have to be the ones driving conversations about work rules and other distribution constraints, so that you are able to produce as nimbly and safely, while safely as possible. And all artists must be at the center. As producer Marie Sisko and theater folks of color are reminding American white artists and organizations, service organizations here in the States and Canada are doing similarly. UK Theatre Sold published specific guidelines yesterday. Also, over my career, I've noticed the opposing forces of management versus artists slow us down. Administrators have to do better. We can no longer silo artists over there with their creative teams. We have to create new ways, new frameworks for our work together. We must unleash the power of artists, not just on stages and in our concert halls, but as part of our planning and developing new ways of making meaning in our communities. New way number 2, our organizational missions. I'm not sure they're good enough anymore. We've got to think now in terms of just causes and service-wise that compel our communities to fight with us for our survival. What does that mean for you? I don't know. Pull that mission statement off your wall or off your website and ask yourself, how far will my organization go to keep it alive? How far will my community go to keep my organization alive and here and thriving? Does your organization serve today's needs authentically and in the heart of the matter in your community? New way number 3. Our business models are outdated for the times and our challenges. More importantly, we've got to develop the capacity to adapt, something Sinek calls existential flexibility. And as leaders, we must surround ourselves with people who are excited about this, not drained by it. Think distribution channels, supply chains, technology, and more. Now is the time to learn from adjacent industries like sports, libraries, the newspaper industry, film, the recording industry, and more industries that adapted successfully and failed miserably through competitive or economic disruption. We should be studying them now. We must maintain our core purpose, But our communities, teams, and artists deserve innovation and adaptation from us. New way number 4. Our audiences and visitors and patrons must be included in our play. What does this mean? Well, they need to be seen and heard and talked to now more than ever. We've been talking to them largely transactionally, though, and now we need to ignite their imaginations, involve them in dialogue about who we're working to become, and more. This requires your whole team, not just your box office or guest services, must be a leadership priority. If we're listening hard and keep their needs front and center, closing loops with your patrons will result in kind. With their investment and ideas, they'll tell you their concerns and provide inspiration. Remember the TRG episode with Fred Reichheld, the creator of the Net Promoter System, who reminded us people will remember how they were treated during this crisis, which leads to critical new way number 5. Diversity is the fuel of our recovery. Now, in the context of the recent couple of weeks, I am certain this statement feels weak. Light. Combating racism is our human job and our organization's responsibility to actively engage in this fight. And beyond that, the data is clear. Organizations that ensure that they are surrounded by people with different perspectives and different experiences, which come across a full spectrum, those organizations perform better. They get faster, stronger results. I'm reminded of this data right now because I'm rereading a book by Dr. Tony Byers. It's titled The Multiplier Effect of Inclusion. It makes not only a human case, but also a performance case for diversity and inclusion. Right now, especially now, arts and culture should be leading in an effort to bring communities together and leverage its perfect vehicle to help people transcend their differences. It means we must have different perspectives and experiences inside our teams, in our exhibits and concert halls, and that different people than we have around us today should help us define who we can be important to and how. New rule number 6, this nonprofit model, it needs a relook, a refocus. Nonprofit and charitable organizations do work that businesses can't and never will do. We have to stop apologizing for investment in that work and instead create the governance models, insist on them, and insist on the public policy support that builds entrepreneurialism and helps us thrive that way in our work. There are long-held beliefs, myths, notably the overhead and surplus myths, that we dare not spend too much on overhead and we dare not post a surplus in a charity. These myths strap organizations, preventing them from accomplishing the bold dreams and making the bold ideas that need to happen. During the Great Recession and now, we see so clearly that the organizations who came into crisis with capital reserves have options that those with weak balance sheets just don't. And remember, overhead is people, and people do everything. We must make a case to surround ourselves with the best diversified group and not be satisfied with anything less. Overhead is also marketing and fundraising, which creates relationships and revenues that enable innovation. And if we've ever had evidence that strong balance sheets and innovation are not just good ideas, but required, it's now. Finally, the last new way, number 7, is this: smaller is better than gone. Virtually every arts and cultural organization and the businesses that support them are smaller now than they were a year ago. Some of you are operating on just a handful of staff or facing months and months of closure. I know, I talk to you. We have to acknowledge the stages of grief that we're going through, and we have to get to work celebrating that we're still here and focus on optimizing what we can do and what we can achieve in new and different ways. Are you nodding your head? You want to throw me out on a rail maybe now? That's good. I want to hear it. Team, let's pull up that poll. I want to see now the evidence of your nodding and your motivation. Right now, this poll is going to ask you where and how you're feeling the most motivated and the most inspired to create action. I want you to vote on everything or anything or nothing that motivates you as it relates to required change in this sector. And as we watch you all participate, which I'm so grateful for, it is not at all a surprise to me that diversity and equity and inclusion leads this pack, but evolving business models and including our artists, addressing our missions. These are things that you are feeling motivated about and wanting to have an impact on. As I wait just a couple of more minutes until my colleague Stephen finishes up and we allow for everyone to vote, I want you to know that Stephen's going to be joining me and I'm going to be taking your questions. We're going to advance the anonymous ones first, as I described, and then take as many of the personal ones as we can, and anything we can't take, I will answer personally. And so now we see the results of this poll: diversity, equity, and inclusion. Behind it, evolving our business models. Behind that, including our artists at the center of this dialogue. Stephen, you've joined me. I'm interested and want to make sure we get time to answer at least a couple of questions that might have come during our session.
Yeah, thank you, Jill, and thank you to those that have submitted questions so far. Please do continue as we step through. And Jill, not anonymous question coming through at the moment. So I'll start with Bradley. Thank you, Bradley. Bradley says, can you recommend ways to better understand achieving missions, visions, and values? Yes, we need new mission statements, but many of us don't even live up to the ones we have. Can you speak to aligning your culture and ethos with your mission? As Cynic has said during this time, it's important to pivot from your why, not your how nor your what. Yeah.
My first instinct is about measurement and data and conversation and learning. My experience, Bradley, is that mission statements live in frames and on websites, but they aren't active. One of the most important actions I believe we could take is to make them active and to be asking with data that enables us to say, yes, our community believes we're hitting on our mission. Yes, our artists, our employees, our boards believe that mission meets the needs of the community. Yes, we're evolving. We've got to make those missions active in our cultures, and that's a leadership and day in and day out decision.
Jill, this is an interesting question. It's an anonymous one. Why do you think so many nonprofits don't have HR departments? There's often no outlet for harassment complaints, discrimination issues, or working pay equity, etc. And our organizations are often bad at addressing these things.
Yeah, I think that's an issue related to our governance model and these myths about overhead and investment in overhead. And It cannot stand. We must invest in the needs that we have to ensure that our people can do the best possible work and that we have the best possible environment for them. It is bull that we are not investing in these brilliant organizations that deliver distinct and exciting value to our communities. So I think it goes back to boards. I think it goes back to belief that we must only be investing in the program. We need brilliance to deliver the program, and we have to get real about that.
Jill, is art a pure perfect form? Art has also been used to perpetuate stereotypes, racism, and bias in the way that characters are presented and stories are told. How do we recognize that history and change it for the future?
Yeah, that is true. And the reason I think Donna thinks it's perfect and the reason it resonates with me is because I feel like even in church, we organize around people with like minds. And in arts and culture, we have the opportunity to be with people who look differently than we do, or to showcase different experiences to people who look differently than we do. And yes, it has been done badly at times, and at times it has been done beautifully. So I don't want to be naive, but I want to call us to engage in that beauty and to make purposeful decisions to use this vehicle for better, for the evolution. Stephen, I'm looking at the clock. I hate it. I knew it. Even with 20 minutes of content, we would have the time for a handful of questions. But as I said, I am committed to answering every one of them. So send them. Dialogue is what we want. And before you go, and as I leave you, knowing that this was a lot to absorb, I want to say these things. You're going to be sent an email, as always, and it's going to ask you for feedback on this session. As always, I read every comment. But this time I also want to hear something else. I want to know if you have the energy and motivation to lead the effort to find new pathways and new ways. So literally in this email, I'm going to ask you if you feel like you have the energy and the motivation right now to click a button that says, yes, I'm motivated. Depending on how many of you there will be a variety of ways to do this, but I am going to convene you as a group. So more to come there with more details about how I and we are going to do that, but we are going to do that. We see our just cause as being almost the resiliency group for the arts, helping our sector be resilient through this time. We're committed. Here's a commitment that I can describe today, though. We're going to double down on this list of 7 new ways, and that's going to start with this week's TRG 30. Our guest and topic roster that you see now for the rest of the month includes roundtables about best practices. Kim Scott, who wrote Radical Candor, is going to be joining us to preview her new book that she's publishing later this year that speaks to workplace injustice. And Kwame Arma at the Young Vic in London is going to be talking with us about innovation and artistry in innovation. Listen, I am honored to be with you every week. I am grateful that you took the time today to talk with me, to listen to me about the 7 ways that I see that with strident, virtuous leadership, we can create bold change for our sector. I look forward to doing that work with you. I want to get to work with you. Thank you for joining me today.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.